Good morning, everyone. This is Jim Fox with Remote.It, and I'll be your host along with Michael Quarters, who will be joining us in a minute. And this is Remote.It and LoRaWAN, Ask Me Anything. So we wanted to do this session because we've seen a lot of LoRaWAN devices come online. We think it's an important market for us. It's an emerging market. And we just wanted to reach out to those users who are using Remote.It to control this type of device and show and tell a little bit, mostly show. And also, we really want this to be interactive. So we want to hear from you, and you can let us know in the chat or by raising your hand if you'd like to make a comment, or you can put something in the chat and we'll answer everything. And just as we're going through the material, go ahead and jump in. We won't save questions till the end or anything. We wanted to make this as interactive as possible. Okay, so this is Ask Me Anything. So feel free to do that, related to Remote.It, of course. And we did prepare a few topics we thought would be of interest, and we're prepared to go through those and demonstrate those features and capabilities of Remote.It when it comes to LoRaWAN. So I'm going to go ahead and kick things off just by kind of going through these 4 topics with you, and hopefully that will stimulate some questions. We did receive some questions in advance, so we're going to answer those as well. Okay, but let's just go ahead and get right into it. First thing I'm going to talk about is the Remote.It organizations. This is important when you have a team of people. A lot of times these LoRaWAN deployments are often obviously commercial IoT systems, and there may be more than one person in a company that needs to access and manage these devices, monitor these devices. We are now running on a couple different brands. We have a package that runs on the Tektelic. I think we've tried that on the Kona Micro IoT gateway. Our software is integrated in the Dragino LG308, and additional models are coming out as well with Remote.It as a standard feature. We'll show you how that works. And we've also been integrated in an Advantech product in Japan. And we are talking to different manufacturers, multiple manufacturers, about integration of Remote.It into their products as a standard feature. The primary advantage being you can manage gateways from multiple manufacturers, all from the single Remote.It console and Remote.It application. Just a quick look for those of you who may not have seen it. In the Dragino web interface, you can choose to activate Remote.It, and we're going to go through that with you. Okay, let me show you a little bit about organizations, and I'm just going to check my chat here. Make sure. Okay. This is a relatively new feature, and it helps you set up and manage and onboard a team of people. Okay, this is really about if I have a team of 3 or 4 folks who need to have access to these devices in the field, how would I do that? How would I do that easily? So I'm going to draw your attention up here in the upper left. This little pull down. This is where you can see what organizations you belong to and what are the devices in those organizations. So if I select a different organization, I'll load those devices. Okay. Just that one, I think that one may not have any devices. So there we go. Okay. But I'm going to go back to my own account and show you how I could add people or remove people and set up my organization. So right up here under account, I see organization. And this is the right way to add people to your account. And I'm going to explain that. You can see that this is the name of my org, Jim's organization. I have 3 seats or 3 users in my organization. So I bought 3 licenses, and I can then distribute those to people in my org. Okay, so I've added all these folks into my organization just by clicking here, entering their email address, choosing whether they should be added as an admin or a member, and adding them. Okay. So I have 3 licenses, and I can distribute those across the members of my org. You see, that's me. I occupy one of the seats, and then I've distributed the 2 other seats to 2 other members of the org. Okay, and you can see in this column, it indicates whether your org member is a member or an admin. I can switch that. An admin has the same rights as the owner. An admin can add and remove devices. They can delete services, add services, and so forth. So a member can only connect to the devices and services that the admin has assigned to their account. So that's the role in the org. Each member of the org would get a role, and then you can see which are licensed. And if I wanted these 3 folks to have full access to all the devices in my account, I would need to buy a couple more seats, or 3 more seats. And I can do that right in the app. Okay. Now, the other benefit of organizations is that all the billing is consolidated into one account. So all of these seats will be charged to a single account, which is the owner account. So you don't have to have everybody in the company who needs access to have their own license purchased. Everything is consolidated into one billing. So that's another nice thing about the organization. So we really recommend to use that if you're going to have more than one user of Remote.It in your company. So I'm going to stop there for a second because we want this to be interactive, and just ask if anyone had any thoughts or questions on that feature. Maybe let us know. Let us know if you're using it by raising your hand. That would be good to know. All righty. Got a few out there. Very good. I also want to show you something you may not have tried before, or sometimes Remote.It users are even surprised to find out, that we have this capability. And that's Remote.It scripting. So scripting lets you run a script across an entire device population, even devices from different manufacturers. So I can run, if I have a bulk operation I need to do, like, grab a log file or reboot or software update, whatever it might be that you'd want to do across the device population, you can do that with Remote.It. So I'm going to show you how to do that right here in the desktop app. Click scripting. That's going to log me into the web version of Remote.It. And you can see I'm on the scripting tab over here, right? And all I would do is, once I have my script, I would upload that into my Remote.It account. Okay, I've already done it, so I'm not going to do it here. And then it will show up here in my list of scripts. Okay, so you can have standard scripts you run. We have customers that run the same script every day. For example, just checking the questions there. So let's see how that works. I go to my device list, and I'm going to run a script across multiple devices of different types. So imagine that. I'm going to select this here, Dragino. This is actually a Raspberry Pi under the hood. So we're going to select that. And also the Tektelic. We have a Tektelic online as well, running Remote.It. So once I select the devices I want, just come up here, execute script. I'm going to choose this one. This one has been written to run across multiple device types, across different brands, if you will. So I'm going to submit that job. And then what's happening is each device is being told to retrieve that script, execute it, and then report back into these columns with some, very basic information just for demonstration purposes. So you can see that starting to populate. So those devices all grabbed the same script. There's the Tektelic down there. This is a Dragino. This was the Pi. And they've all run that script and reported back. And then there's a console here as well to tell you your job status. But if I go back to the desktop, I have those columns as well. So I'm going to just refresh. We had a question come in. Let's see. Yeah. The mobile app the question is, is your dashboard mobile friendly, responsive device? It's certainly responsive on a desktop computer. On our app looks a little different. It's really a different user experience optimized for mobile, but you can get to this interface through the web, through a browser, and use it that way, in which case it would be this same experience. We have another question on scripts. Can you create a scheduled script in order to do a maintenance update during off-peak hours? And that is a great feature. We are implementing that. It's not there right now at the moment. I believe we have delayed start for a one-time execution, but for recurring, we'll want to have a scheduler. So that is something we're aware of and working on.
We do have an API that would allow you to schedule it on your own time, but the scheduling is not in our system.
Okay. I want to ask how many people knew about scripting? Just raise your hand if you knew that was possible, even across brands. Okay, a few of you out there. Good. Okay, with that, I'm going to ask Michael to show a couple more features. Oops. He's going to talk about provisioning devices for larger deployments, how you would go about that. If you're buying 10 or 50 or whatever, we have customers that have deployed hundreds of LoRa gateways. How would you easily deploy those with Remote.It? And also he's going to show you what a jump is. So Michael, I'm going to let you share screen here.
Sure, thank you.
Go ahead and take it away.
So we'll just talk about a little bit of product, our OEM offering. So we don't just offer setting up product of predefined services. We have a package that if you are developing your own system, you can install this package and have this come up immediately whenever the device comes online. And we have full instructions on that over at docs.remote.it. But if we just go into the product definition in our app, in our web app, we can go ahead and just create a product. And what we're going to do is maybe I have 50 or 100 or n number of LoRaWAN devices that I know I want them all to have SSH, or maybe there's an HTTP service that we might need to get to on each one of those. And you want to just define that ahead of time because you know what everything is going to launch with. So if we go ahead and create a new product for Dragino, we'll give it just a standard product type. This is just a friendly name for help me to remember what I'm using this for. And then we can set it up by adding the desired services that we want. So every product or every install has a required bulk service. That is our keep alive to make sure that the device is communicating with us just fine. But now I'm going to add an SSH service. So I can come in here into my list of available services. I can, any of these are accessible. You can customize the port. Say you're using a non-standard port on all your deployments. You can set that up here. And I'm just going to use port 22 because I know that's what it's starting on. And we will have the service enabled by default. You do have the ability to disable services, but then to get on the device to re-enable it can be maybe not ideal because you want it available at all times. So we'll just set up our one service and we'll just go through that now. You could do as many as you want. And all I have to do is set lock this product definition. And I can submit it. And now all I need to get out of this is a bulk identification code. I just hit this little eye icon, and now I have this identification code that as soon as a device registers, it pulls down the configuration from our cloud service and registers whatever services I have assigned here. So let's actually see how this goes. I want to connect to my Dragino, and this is actually currently registered. So you're going to see me deregister it from my account. Come into the Remote.It page in the Dragino. We're going to remove it. Refresh, install.
Michael is in my org, so he's actually as an admin, so he's able to do this, the remove, add services, all of those types of administrative functions.
So all I've got to do is copy and paste correctly. Paste that in here, save it, and register. So now, in my device list, wait for this to load, and we're going to get a Dragino. See here, it's already registered. Now it's coming online. And I have my SSH service that I predefined ahead of time. So this is coming online. Should just take a second. And this is ready to go. And I am, this has booted out in the field for the first time. And it is immediately available to me for SSH.
Now, we're also working with different LoRa gateway manufacturers to integrate this process into a factory firmware. So you won't even have to, grab that package. You'll be able to buy for a certain MOQ determined by each, minimum order quantity determined by each manufacturer. You'll be able to order your device with Remote.It pre-installed with the right services. So if you want HTTP, the web interface, and you want SSH on a Dragino, for example, you'll be able to order it that way. So we are working on that as well with the different LoRa gateway makers.
Jim, there's a good question about comparing it to VPN. I don't know. I think you've got a good comparison on that, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's many advantages we see in customers use Remote.It rather than VPN. I mean, one is if you have multiple sites, I can imagine in a large IoT sort of a deployment, you can only VPN to one at a time, right? So you're always disconnecting, reconnecting to different VPNs to get to the different sites. And in Remote.It, you've got full access to all of your devices from the one console here. You never have to switch back and forth. A VPN, it does expose your network to the public internet as well, right? You have to open a port. So there is a security, there's an attack surface created to that. Also, a lot of these deployments are behind cellular connections, right? These IoT, I mean, the Dragino has a SIM card, you know, a cellular connection built right into the box, right? So a lot of times these devices are out in the wild, in the cornfield, wherever they are. And so that's behind cellular. And with a cellular internet connection, you really can't set up a VPN because you don't have a public IP address at the endpoint, right? The carriers will give you a private IP in what's called CGNAT configuration, and the public IP is somewhere in the carrier's data center. So you really can't set up a VPN server with a cellular connection out in the wild. So, you know, we're an encrypted tunnel, just like a VPN. But for those reasons, customers sometimes go with Remote.It. Now, you can run a VPN tunnel over Remote.It to overcome the port forwarding problem, if that's something you want to do. And we have, you know, customers who do that. So we could give you more information on that, you know, offline. Then there's another question came in there. Can I send data from Remote.It to another platform for monitoring?
Yeah, I mean, we have a very extensive API. It's a GraphQL API, so you can query that to get out whatever information you may need. It depends on what kind of information we want to share. But you know, all this data is available to you through our API. If you want to route traffic through another platform for monitoring, you can also do that as well with proxy connections, or depending on what platform that is, you can install Remote.It and create peer-to-peer connections to your devices on that third-party platform, and then connect, run whatever you need at that point. I know we have done work in the past with Ansible and other device management software that's strictly you know, defined to do that, and you can incorporate these Remote.It connections into that. If there's a specific one that maybe you need some assistance with, we'd be happy to go over that with you. Yeah, I can jump into jump connections and show that off a little bit.
Jump, yeah.
So the great thing is I don't just have this access to this Dragino. I have access to the devices on the same LAN as this Dragino with without the Remote.It software being installed on it. So I know on this network that there happens to be a camera. And so this is at port 80. And all I have to do is update the service host address or the fully qualified domain name, whatever resolver is available to this Dragino. I can use this as an endpoint. I believe that was it 60.4?
60.04, I think. It's the camera, right?
Yeah. So now what I'm doing is I'm just adding a new service to my Dragino. This is going to push it onto the Dragino and start it up. And now when this comes online, I will be able to access this with my web browser to view a camera on the same network. So just take a moment for it to come up.
So what Michael's, there you go. We're essentially turning the Dragino into an on-demand router or gateway into the LAN where the Dragino's installed. So that's a very powerful feature. You can make connections to any other device that's on the same LAN as the
So as
Dragino.
long as they're listening, yeah.
Yeah, as long as obviously there's a service. So this is just an IP camera on the same LAN as the Dragino, sorry. And you can see we're using the Dragino as sort of a virtual or on-demand router in that case.
Yeah.
Now, of course, not just anyone can set that up, right? You have to be a authenticated administrator to activate that feature or set up that kind of service.
And I can tell you that this is not dropping frames. This is a live look. We're not adding a bunch of additional bandwidth here and having this drop. So you're not going to see any kind of degradation of service just because you're using a jump service or the Remote.It connection itself.
You can almost, if you look at the doll, point it with your cursor, Michael.
Oh.
There's a bobblehead doll that's not bobbling very much.
Yeah.
But you can see some motion there. So the frame rate is really pretty good.
Yeah.
Our goal is to make the performance the same as if you were connected directly.
Right. Yeah. And any questions on jump services whatsoever?
I wonder, let me ask just by raising hands, how many of you were aware of that capability?
Jim, we have a question regarding jump. In the jump scenario, do I need to install Remote.It on every endpoint or jump target?
No, you do not need to. Actually, no, I do not need to install Remote.It on this. This is doing a normal HTTP connection from the Dragino directly to the access camera. So this is great to where in some places where you don't have access to the terminal to be able to, or the file system to install packages. This is great in a cloud-based environment like AWS. I can't install Remote.It on a AWS hosted Redis service or database, but I can install it onto an EC2 instance in the same VPC and jump directly to that Redis instance or database.
All right, we have a related question in the Q&A. How can we advise customers so Dragino cannot access devices on their LAN? Privacy issues.
So really it's division of subnets. It's that LAN security that needs to be done. If a LAN is completely open to all the traffic inside of it, everybody is able to jump from anywhere whatsoever, regardless. So you can restrict this down. You can restrict these connections to maybe being on their own VLAN or some other subnet on the network.
So it's not unlike any other device on the LAN. I mean, different customers view this differently. We have customers who love that feature. It's just a savior for them. Other customers do view that as something they don't want to enable. So again, that is only possible through an authenticated admin account. It's not something any member can do. And different customers view that differently. But if you've got other devices on that LAN, any device is going to be able to address and communicate with any other device. So sometimes that's very helpful. The other thing, it might be something you just activate for an hour while you're debugging a particular problem, and then just turn off that service, delete that service. So that's why we allow that. Okay, well, I think those are the topics that we sort of pre-planned to cover on this webinar, and just to have to give you some thoughts maybe and questions, generate some
another
questions.
Question, what's the difference between organizations and sharing?
Well, that's a good question. Let me share my screen here. some of you who have been with us for a while may have used the sharing feature. Let me just get this organized here. Sharing is really meant for a one-on-one kind of share. If I were to share a device with another user, then I have to do that manually. And if I add more devices, let me find one I own here. I can share very easily here, just entering the email address of another Remote.It account owner. I can pick which services, all or individually. But I have to manually do that for every user that I want to share to. So if you have a good sized organization or a team, you don't want to have to do that for everyone one by one manually. So the org gives you the ability to kind of do that globally. Folks who are in your org will have access to all the devices registered there now, and then also those devices registered in the future automatically. Okay. You also get the consolidated billing with the org. So you wouldn't, if you're just sharing out, then each individual share recipient would need to buy their own seat, if you're getting up above 5 devices. So it's just a simpler billing arrangement as well. But the onboarding and offboarding is basically the same process.
Jim, another question on cellular. If I'm using cellular for the internet connection on the gateway, how much cellular data does the Remote.It agent consume when running on the gateway?
Yeah, that's a good question on cell usage. So a lot of customers with these devices are using low data rate SIM cards, right? But that have unlimited data. I know one from T-Mobile that card runs at 64 kilobits, at least in the US, it's available. And that one is like $50 per year, unlimited data. If you're on a different plan, the Remote.It system does have a sort of a heartbeat, keep alive packet and communication that's going on all the time. That's how we're able to make the connections when on demand, when you need them. That's going to consume, last time I did the calculation, around 3 megabytes a month, okay, per service. So that can be adjusted, on a case-by-case basis, but sort of out of the box, that's about the typical data consumption.
Another question, do I need a paid account to set up an organization? And can you please explain the paid plans?
Okay, you do not need a paid plan to set up an organization. I can create an organization in a free account. So you'll have this ability. Now, the one caveat is that your members, if you haven't bought a seat, if everyone has a personal account, a free account, then your members will only be able to connect to the first 5 devices. So that's the 5 device limit of the free plan, right? So the answer is you don't need a paid account, but there is that 5 device limitation for the free accounts, okay? And the other question was about the plans. Yeah, let me explain the plans here. Okay, we are currently offering personal, professional, and enterprise off our website. We are introducing a new plan we call business. And business is going to really address the requirements we hear from larger organizations or commercial deployments. So, stronger two-factor authentication, including the use of authenticator apps like Authy. We will be defining some additional features for organizations and tagging, which is tagging is a way to group your devices and group your people into logical groups. We have a much longer log history retention there, more customizability, if that's a word. You can customize the notifications and alerts with more detail in a business plan. Another very popular feature of business is the single sign-on or SAML integration with your company's single sign-on. And then the GraphQL support that Michael mentioned. This plan would include, full access to really all our APIs and the support in the use of those. Okay. So we've found that package of features is something a lot of businesses are looking for.
I think we've come to the end of our questions, unless any of our guests have additional questions or would like to see other features that either Jim or Michael can demonstrate for you. Please don't hesitate to ask us using the chat feature.
And just while you're thinking of that, we will send a follow-up email to all the attendees here, and we'll give you this contact information. We have email support at Remote.It. That goes straight to Michael and me. And I do think our support is excellent, in terms of responsiveness and the capabilities, of course. We also offer one-on-one meetings. So I think earlier with that issue you had with the Dragino web interface, you can book a meeting directly with me and Michael on using that link. And again, we'll send this out as an email so you can have that. And you can always reach me or Michael directly at our Remote.It email addresses. So we do offer a lot of support for our users. Again, this will be included in the follow-up email, but we have a lot of resources online. I think I would point out our YouTube channel is pretty good. We have a lot of content there. If you like to learn from video, of course, there's also a well-written documentation section of our website. Here's where you'll find the device package if you did want to try to install that on your own. And of course, we're on all the social media platforms, so look for us there. We always appreciate a shout out on Twitter if you have a Twitter account. So I'll plug that.
All right, if there are no other questions, this concludes our webinar today. We also have another similar session planned for this evening, 6 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It's actually designed to give our Asia customers, Southeast Asia customers, an opportunity to join us, but anyone is welcome to join. If you are interested in attending, please do so, and it will give you an extra opportunity to ask any questions. Jim and Michael, thank you for your participation and delivering the content, and to all of our attendees, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you online, and don't hesitate to contact us should you have any questions.